Good evening and welcome to this IADC update. We all are aware that the international airport at Argyle is well on the way, and coming out of that there will be a number of benefits for St. Vincent and the Grenadines and for individuals. Now this evening we want to look at some of the opportunities that would arise from the presence of an international airport here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and also what sort of development should take place alongside the development of this airport. This evening we are going to focus on some of the benefits that are likely to arise because of the presence of the international airport here in Argyle, and the sort of development planning that must take place to ensure that the country develops in an orderly fashion and so avoid any chaotic situations that may arise. I have with me Development Planner Mr. Bentley Brown. He is from the Ministry of Planning and he's currently on assignment with the SIF, that's the Social Investment Fund. Mr. Brown, good evening and welcome. Thank you for coming.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity to be on your program.
Now, firstly, we will look at how the country on a whole can benefit from an international airport. How are we likely to benefit?
Well, first of all, I must say that the international airport is one of the biggest projects ever undertaken in St. Vincent, and it has the potential of ensuring more balanced development, poverty reduction, and providing sustainable development through the development of tourism, industry, agriculture, and other sectors. So that if the airport is operational, we are in a good position to realize some of these benefits. The big issue though is how we prepare ourselves to maximize on the possible benefits. And maybe what we have been doing so far is to focus on the discussion on if we should have an airport or not. Well, the airport is definitely coming, and we are still in the construction phase, but as we do carry out the construction activities, there is a lot of work and there's a lot of room for us to start to use our thinking powers and our planning skills to see how we could maximize on some of the benefits. Now, as a physical planner, I want to focus more on the physical aspect of the development. I must say that the development of the airport will provide opportunities for balanced development among the areas. In particular, is a great opportunity for us to develop the Argyle area into a small town, and if you want for terminology, even a city. In addition, the lands that would be diverted from airport use at Arnesville once the new Argyle airport is operational would also provide opportunities for a new town or a new development which would ease some of the congestion of Kingston central business area. In addition, there are possibilities for areas with tourism potential, with tourism sites, for agriculture, etc. So that overall what we could see is a big shift in the population distribution, the distribution of development throughout St. Vincent and the Grenadines.
Okay, you mentioned the development of the Argyle area. I know that there is a land use plan being developed for how the lands around the airport zone should be used. It is not finished as yet, it is not complete, so, but it will be in time for if people want to establish businesses, what sort of businesses would be allowed around here, you know, those sort of establishments. How in the meantime, while that is being sorted out, how should the people around the airport, those in the areas like Stubbs, Mespo, Baibu, Proven Vale, those areas, how should they be positioning themselves? Or now, if you could shed some light on that, you may have some idea to take advantage of whatever opportunities might arise.
But I think there are two issues here. First of all, the airport has its own master plan which would concern the land basically which surrounds the airport. But on a wider scale, we're talking about developing a land use plan. Now, the land that we're speaking about will be under private sector and also maybe under some government control. So that the whole process of preparing the plan should have active people's involvement, especially the landowners. So the physical planning unit, the physical planning board could find out how people intend to use their land in the future And part of the discussion should be to enlighten them or to identify some of the possibilities in terms of land development that could take place as a result of airport development. And this is not the first airport we're building in the country, but we know for sure that airport development will attract a lot of commercial related activities, travel, tour business. It would encourage maybe even hotels. It would also have a lot of people who want to come into the area to live. The area itself is traditionally an agricultural area, so we'd have to, as part of our own strategy, see how we could maintain that balance between some of our agricultural land as well as the commercial and some of the more non-residential land uses we'd want. So in terms of identification of land, we could say there are possibilities for hotel, tourism related uses. There's also possibility for commercial, shopping and other service industries to grow up around the airport. Now the people who own lands around the area, it is critical that they assess the situation and they determine how best they could put their land to the highest and best use. Now, as part of the whole process, we know that there could also be speculation where people try to come in and just buy land to hold so that they could capitalize on windfall land values down the road. The big issue for the state and the planning authority is to see how, first of all, it could develop the best land use plan in consultation with the population, and to put measures in place to guide development, encourage persons to go. And part of this can't be just physical planning unit. It would take the Chamber of Commerce, the private sector in St. Vincent, as well as all those agencies like CD to help people to identify the businesses, help them with development of business plan and getting them really through the whole process of establishing businesses.
Okay, now we know with the international airport built in this area, there will be developments not just around the zone, but all along the Windward Highway going down into Kingston itself on the leeward side. And as a result of the spin-offs that we're likely to see from this airport, in that Arnesville will now be turned into a commercial center, and we have already begun to see businesses being put up in Arnesville. And with the Bukama Resort down in Leeward, we are seeing new businesses being put up down in there, and we are likely to see a lot of other establishments being put up. How, in the meantime, with the absence of the land use plan, do we streamline what sort of development we want to see in what areas, and if we don't, how could it affect us?
Well, first of all, even without the plan, the Physical Planning and Development Board is still responsible for the development of the area, so that on an individual basis, what we could call development control process, our development management process, we can ensure that we get the developments that we would like. So the development would have to, all developments should get planning permission, which means that people have to apply. The application will be assessed and decision made on those applications. But we also know that we have a history of informal settlements where people would, contrary to the law, go and establish anyway. It will be critical that the Physical Plan and Development Board pay attention and monitor all developments, especially those informal activities which are likely to develop on state-owned land, on the roadsides, etc. Because we have a serious problem. We're developing an airport which hopefully will attract a lot of development, and which would mean that the Windward Highway and the Maracora Highway in particular would be accommodating more traffic. With the narrow width of the road, it is very difficult for us to, in the short run, improve on the road width, and we could have a lot of congestion, and the congestion could be increased if we have a lot of informal settlement, if we have a lot of on-the-street parking, and if we don't pay serious attention to managing new developments along those highways. And the same would hold basically for even as we get closer to Kingston. And one point is also critical and should be made is that while we have spent $600 million on the airport itself, it is critical that we build around the airport in a manner which would allow us to conform with the operational standards. Because if you go and build a lot of buildings too close to the airport, or if you go and have informal settlements too close to the airport, you may very well find that you could lose your ability to operate.
Okay, now if we were to do everything that you recommend, we were to get everything right and we work according to plan and we see a lot of serious developments, orderly developments that are beneficial to St. Vincent and the Grenadines, where do you see this country, like in the next 10 years? Where do you see us?
Well, if we are to get orderly development and if we are to get some of the benefits that we expect from the airport, I think what we'll see is a major shift in population distribution. I think we will have rural areas which are not necessarily lagging behind, but which are more prosperous, and where we are able to maintain a great deal of the rural population in rural areas through agriculture, forestry, fisheries and related activities, and where people don't necessarily have to come into an urban center in Kingston to get most of their goods and services. I could see satellite towns being developed in Georgetown, Bayabo, around Stubbs, Argyle, Annisville on the windward side, and as happened already, we already seeing a major hotel at Bookament, and I expect to see a good service center area being developed in Bookament area. Hopefully if we could get the Mountain, Peters Hope, we could see some growth and development in the Layou, Barley towns. And I'm sure we'll get some development in the Grenadines, which would all help in giving us more spatial balance. The situation with poverty, I think, would be reduced. And hopefully if we could have the right education and we could have the right social amenities, we would have a much better place for most of our citizens to work, live, and carry out their recreational activities.
So all in all, you see improved standard of living for Vincentians?
Well, yeah, I think we could have improved standard of living, but the airport itself is necessary but not sufficient. What we have to do is to go out there now and look at where the opportunities are in agriculture. For example, if we say the airport will allow us to get agricultural produce or perishable goods to a 8,000-mile airport from us, it means we have to look and see in the area of agriculture where we could get the fruit and vegetables grown and how we could work with the farmers, how we could help them overcome some of their problems, and in particular how we could give them new technologies, whether it is irrigation, greenhouse, etc., so that they could be able to realize some of these potentials.
And seeing that we are in Argyle and we have quite a bit of the agricultural area surrounding this side, well, Mespo in particular, and there are some other areas going up the windward side, this will be of tremendous benefit to the farmers.
This will be a great benefit to the country because we also have, from the banana production, a lot of high areas, high mountainous areas, which are under agriculture and under banana in particular. If we are going to get into fruit crop production for export, we have a very good chance of getting into tree forests, getting into agriculture and planting a lot of fruit trees in these highland areas. And being close to the Argyle Airport, I think the lands around the airport, we have some good agricultural potential, and we may very well be able to get into whether it's cut flower, vegetable production, etc. And being close to the airport would cut down a lot of the travel and transportation damage. So we have a good chance, but I know there's also opportunities for people who would be, say, in the Bookament Valley, because now we have a big hotel development, you can now produce specifically for that market. So there are possibilities and potential, but the big issue is we need to get our communities in the action. We can't keep them out. The airport has to be seen as part and parcel of a wider program to bring balanced development and sustainable development, and we need to get all hands and all persons on board. I think so far we have not paid enough attention to letting people know about the benefits, or people have not been able to identify those benefits and start to work on maximizing those benefits. And very soon we have to really get into that game and see the construction is ongoing, but the focus should really be now on helping people to maximize benefits, whether they be the individual, household, communities, or businesses.
And I think that we have started that discussion, and we will continue to look at how people can benefit from the presence of the international airport here at Argyle, and really see lives being changed, standard of living being improved, and St. Vincent and the Grenadines economically taking off and becoming what we want to call a modern day society. Mr. Bentley Brown, thank you so much for chatting with us. We'll continue the discussion another time.
Okay, thanks very much.
Good evening.